Hello. You join us just a few days after another monumental Six Nations Championship. All the teams outside of Italy were in transition, produced some wonderful rugby, and it was a great spectacle. All taking place in some of the most fantastic stadiums you can find anywhere in the country. You have Twickenham, obviously, the Aviva Stadium, my beloved Murrayfield, Stade France, and the Principality Stadium. Of all those stadiums, probably the most iconic is the Principality Stadium in Cardiff. Obviously it's a trip of a lifetime when people get an opportunity to come and visit the stadium here, but there's one man who comes here every day to enjoy his day-to-day working life. That is the head groundsman, Mr. Lee Evans. Lee joins me this morning to talk about life at the Principality Stadium. Hello Lee, welcome to Turf Matters. Wonderful. Do you still get a buzz every time you come through the door here at the Principality?
Yeah, definitely. It's the reason why I came to work here. Really, it's the national stadium of Wales, and yeah, the buzz, the excitement you get leading up to match days is second to none.
And it's obviously it's that stadium. I've been thinking it's so good they named it twice. It started off its life as the Millennium Stadium and became the Principality Stadium. Was that a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it was. It was a year last January. It was a commercial deal which made a lot of sense. So the stadium has changed its name. Principality are a Cardiff-based company, so even that makes sense as well.
Now, as I say, we're just on the back of that Six Nations Championship I was talking about. You had two games here at the stadium, two fantastic games, contrasting fortunes for the Welsh team. What's it like for you on a tournament day, a match day?
Well, it's the pinnacle of the week, really. You know, we spend all season preparing for 6 or 7 big games a season. Our season's sort of split in two. We have Autumn Series and Six Nations. The Six Nations you just talked about, match day is second to none. You still get the buzz after 13 years. You still get the buzz. It's great feeling.
Do you get an opportunity to enjoy it, or is there too much going on, making sure that everything on your side of the table is as it should be?
There's a lot going on here at match day. Our work is usually done 3 o'clock kickoff. Our work's done about 10:30, 11. But then through the rest of the morning we have flag rehearsals on the pitch, we have firework rehearsals around the pitch, so there's a lot of incidentals going on. But yeah, we can sit back and enjoy it. We have the best seat in the house. We sit on the halfway line just over there. Nothing is in between us and the playing surface, so it's a great experience.
And post-match, how much work is it involved for you post-match?
Well, post-match, yeah, we try and get a lot done. We have a lot of part-time staff come in on a match day. I think we have 15, 16 lads come in. Main reason being we divot the pitch. We'll run the Hondas over the pitch to clear away any debris, and then we try and get all our lighting rigs back on the pitch. So within 2 hours we can get all that achieved with these extra staff. And
how much of an extra spring in the step is there when your team has won?
Oh, definitely. You know, you can see the boys, they're divoting a bit more keenly when Wales have had a nice victory, so yeah, it does make a difference.
I remember first talking about the Millennium Stadium as it was back in the early 2000s. I was speaking to an agronomist who said, look, the way they've built the stadium down in Cardiff is a bit like trying to grow grass in the bottom of a toilet bowl. And for a long time there were issues with the pitch, and hopefully you'll be able to tell me a little bit about that. But those issues seem to have disappeared. So tell me a little bit about the issues and how they came about and what has happened to resolve them, so that now we do see in front of us at this moment a pristine pitch, which is, despite the fact we've had a number of matches on it recently, and where we are from there.
It is a very challenging environment to grow grass. I think when I first started here 12, 13 years ago, the STRI came in and did some lighting tests in here to sort of work out how much sunlight the pitch received. And there was one stat that they threw at me that this was the darkest stadium in Europe to grow grass. Now, there's a couple of stadiums that come up since then, so I don't know how long that stat still holds. And as I just alluded to, when I first started, we never had any of these fantastic lighting rigs that I have now. We were the only movable palletised pitch in the UK. That in itself brings a lot of issues.
Are there any of them still around now, palletised pitches, or has that been a fad that's come and gone?
Well, there are none in the UK. The Bird's Nest Stadium in Beijing, that was palletised purely for the opening ceremony of the Olympics. There was one in
Feyenoord, was it one in?
I don't think it was a palletised pitch. It might have been a slide-in pitch. I think in Europe we were the only one. I think they might have done one in Greece for the opening ceremony of an Olympics out there as well. Now, of course, I wasn't here when the stadium was built, and there's lots of different stories about why we had the palletised pitch. But the palletised pitch is what we ended up with, and we had to sort of make it work. Now, prior to me having lighting rigs, we used to re-turf the pitch 3 or 4 times a season, and basically because grass couldn't survive in this environment. Every time we went on the pitch with machinery, every time the pitch was played on, you'd lose an element of grass cover. Now, we have quite high profile games here, so it was important that we kept a good level of grass cover. So prior to lighting rigs, we used to re-turf 3 or 4 times a year.
Which is expensive.
Very expensive. With the onset of lighting rigs, I managed to cut that down to 1 re-turf a year. And things were going swingingly. We had a turf pitch that we knew with these lighting rigs we could get enough root out of the turf to withstand modern rugby. And then I think modern rugby sort of got ahead of what turf supply is and what we could do. You know, nowadays you look at the forwards and you look at the backs, you can't tell them apart. They're powerful machines.
The backs are more powerful than the forwards were just a few years ago.
And you look at the combined weight of a pack is, well, the France team has 1,000 kilograms, which is a ton of weight. So what we were getting then in middle part of my career here is the turf couldn't withstand the rigours of a scrum. So you had a ton of weight
and it was all just folding up like a rug.
You had a ton of weight pushing up against a ton of weight on something that was only 40 millimetres thick. So it was inevitably going to tear and push up, and we had to make a decision then what we did next. So we sort of scoured the market, went to see other stadiums, see what they were doing, and we went down the Desso Groundsmaster route, which is where we are now.
There's like a number of other pitches have done similarly.
Yeah, well, I think we followed Edinburgh. I think Edinburgh went.
You were after Edinburgh?
Yes. They went in the summer of 3 years ago, and we went the autumn after. So now all 6 nations in the UK are all exactly the same Desso Groundsmaster pitch.
And how is your maintenance programme differed with a Desso pitch as what you were carrying out previous to that?
Well, it's brought different challenges. You know, when we used to turf the pitch, we used to bring in a turf that had 100% grass cover. So you lay out the turf, and the challenge was trying to get it to root, but trying to maintain that 100% grass cover. And with the lighting rigs we got here now, we knew we could maintain 100% grass cover. The challenge was, could we get enough strength in the turf, and could we get enough roots out of the turf to withstand modern rugby? With a Desso Groundsmaster pitch, you start off with nothing. You've got the plastic strands, so the challenges for us are much more different. The challenge now is, can we get to 100% grass cover in the periods that we are given? Now, we're a multi-use stadium. We have pop concerts, we have motorsports, we have speedway, we have Monster Jam, which eats into the growing period of a normal stadium, if you like. So whereas most stadiums will be seed in June, end of May, June, we overseed September, mid-September, late September. So that in itself then throws different challenges. September in the stadium, less than a quarter of the pitch sees any sunlight.
Now the press can be fairly brutal when it comes to if they've picked up a potential flaw. Have you had any negative headlines regarding that bloody head groundsman at the Principality doesn't know what he's doing?
I have in previous years, yeah. You know, when we had the turf pitch here, we had some difficult moments. Prior to games, I used to try and have a word with the commentator. So if for example, Eddie Butler was commentating, I'd meet him, I'd bring him up to date where we were with the pitch, what's gone on, so that then if there was a problem with the pitch, he could speak factually. Because what happens a lot of times is, if there's a break in play and there's a bit of problem with the pitch, a commentator will just guess at something. It happened last Saturday against Ireland. There was a lot of talk of the pitch being soaking wet. The pitch was bone dry at kick-off.
I heard them say that.
Yes, the pitch.
You've been working a flanker.
Yeah, I was trying to get the BBC to come down and feel the grass, because I heard it on the commentary, and the pitch was bone dry. So sometimes when there's a break in play, commentators tend to say stuff which isn't factually correct.
Yeah, and that can set a ball rolling that you'd
it
rather
can,
not.
Yes,
but it's the same in any sport. When it comes to golf, the course managers can get it in the neck as well. And you just got to grow a thick skin.
Yeah, definitely. You know, in the early days it was tough, but you're right. You just roll with it now.
Now, as to say, the one of the unique elements about the Principality Stadium here is the roof.
Yes.
Now, does that cause you issues? I mean, I know certainly I think it's ideal if the weather's lousy, if it's wet and raining outside or snowing, you can close the roof.
Yes.
But sometimes it's done for tactical reasons. We hear about Warren Gatlin wanting to get the roof closed, and Eddie Jones not wanting to have the roof closed, or anybody else as well.
I think in the early days, the roof was an important part of our armoury and how we maintained the pitch here. The old palletised turf pitch didn't drain very well at all. Now, Cardiff is the wettest city in the UK, so I'm told, so it was important we used the roof as a tool to keep the pitch playable. Now we're a Desso Grassmaster pitch, which is 97% sand, drains incredibly well. I never want the roof shut because let's face it, grass doesn't grow in the dark.
No.
Grass doesn't grow indoors. Now, if both sides agree for the roof to be shut on match day, that means the roof has to be shut the day before for captain's run as well. Now, in my experience here, you keep this roof shut for 2 or 3 days and the grass plant starts to fall over on itself. So it does have a negative effect on what we're trying to do. I understand Warren Gatlin's claim, because when the roof is shut, the atmosphere in here is second to none.
Yeah, and that's obviously going to go down to the home team's favour.
Definitely. We've seen teams here shut the roof. I remember Stuart Lancaster's game. He actually couldn't decide, and he phoned me 9 o'clock at night to give me his decision, and he was going to play with the roof open. The next day, I think we hammered England 30 points to 3.
I remember that.
It was the wrong call because his team froze. The atmosphere in here was rocking. So.
Oh, how does it? I mean, when it is closed, you were talking about the fact that there's an awful lot more moisture in the air,
there is
condensation or whatever.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, by second half, once the roof is shut, the pitch can be soaking wet. So it's always when you have this conversation with away team managers, what are the effects when the roof's shut? Kick off, it'll be dry, but by second half, when there's 75,000 people in here, the grass sweats and becomes greasy.
Makes it easier for kicking conversions and penalties, I suppose, as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we've just had the Six Nations, a high-profile event in the UK, but we are on the verge of what will be probably the biggest sporting event you'll have been in charge of.
Yes, definitely.
When the Champions League final is played here at the beginning of June.
Yes, June the 3rd. Yes.
And the television audience for that will be absolutely enormous. Are you looking forward to it?
Can't wait. I was fortunate enough to go out and work in the final in Milan last year. The idea being that I get to experience the run up to the final, what's coming on the road, because there's a lot goes on the pitch leading up to the final, and me and my staff can't wait. It'll be an enormous achievement for all of us.
Now I know that the rugby, the pre-match, has got an awful lot more razzmatazzy than it did 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's always been the case with the Champions League. What differences are there from your perspective with a rugby build-up and match itself and a football build-up and match itself?
I think the main difference is the final quality of the playing surface. There's different parameters for rugby, and what our team are after, we try and prepare for the Welsh rugby team. For the Champions League final, UEFA come with quite strict stipulations of how they want the pitch prepared, how they want it cut, the pattern of the pitch they want us to put out there, hardness, moisture, etc., etc. So we have strict guidelines that we have to adhere to.
Are they tighter than they would be for the rugby?
Yes, they are, and we have certain testing procedures that we have to go through. We had a test this week to make sure we're on track for what they're demanding, really. But that's all what we look forward to.
But the other changes that they're bringing, you were talking earlier about the fact there's a whole new television gantry going to be fitted at the stadium here, which is going to cost a few seats.
The stadium's going to be transformed. The north stand, they're going to build a TV studio right the way across the top there. In the bus bay where I normally store my lighting rigs, that'll be full of TV studio. Next door at Cardiff Blues, the whole of the Cardiff Blues rugby pitch will be covered for just TV trucks alone. The whole of Cardiff and the stadium will be transformed for the Champions League final like nobody will believe.
Yeah. So will you have that down as one of the highlights? You're hoping it'll be one of the highlights of your career?
Oh, definitely.
Because there's not many groundsmen will have had World Cup matches, Olympic football.
Yes.
Your CV looks extraordinarily impressive.
I've been fortunate, to oversee 3 FA Cup finals, Carling Cup finals, Charity Shields, Rugby World Cups, Rugby League World Cups, Olympic football. So this is it will be the biggest event I've ever overseen. But it's one of many that we've overseen here. So it's a great challenge. I can't wait.
Wonderful. Now, I naively thought that, I know this is a multi-use stadium, that when you have your rock concerts, your speedway, your monster trucks, you would be equally involved as you are when you're in charge for the football and the rugby. But I understand you don't have to do nearly as much when that happens.
No, we tend to, me and my staff, we tend to not take any time off during the grass season. Yeah, we're different to other stadiums here. We have grass season and then we have non-grass events, if you like. So when the pitch is covered for concerts, etc., speedways, monster jams, that's when we get our time off. We are doing then pre-event checks, but it's not nearly as much work as we do on the grass.
Wonderful. Now, just quickly coming back onto the grass, what would you say the biggest development there has been? We're looking out at lighting rigs there. Would you say that's one of the biggest things that's happened in the last 10 years to make your job easier?
Definitely, especially in the environment we're working in here. The lighting rigs supplement sunlight. This is such a dark environment, and I know you cannot keep grass alive in this stadium for 365 days a year without lighting rigs. But also something we touched on earlier, pitch reinforcements. You know, the deso strands that are stitched into the surface means that the days of pitches, or my pitch cutting up, are long gone. So the players have got confidence and stability underfoot, which is paramount. It's all about player welfare and player experience.
Where do you think it can go from here? Do you think we've reached the pinnacle of pitch quality, or do you think there's still areas where there is capacity to improve?
I think that pitch quality has to be maintained. But I think what's happening now is you see newer stadiums being built without the pitch in mind now. I think you see some of these new stadiums which are being dreamt of and thought of, and groundsmen are thinking of other ways to maintain the quality of the pitch. There's talk about the new pitch at Tottenham being a pitch that can slide out with an artificial pitch underneath. There's new LED lighting systems coming up now which are going to be able to cover the whole pitch in a slide-in motion. So I think as stadiums develop, so we and stadium designers need to find other ways of keeping the quality of the playing surfaces that are currently out there. I think that's the challenge.
You think the equipment, your hand tools, your mowers, have they kept pace with this development?
Well, definitely there are new electric mowers on the market now. We've recently trialled a few here, fantastic machines, you know, much lighter than some of the petrol mowers out there. So I think we are keeping up with the times with new machinery, new lighting rigs, LED lighting rigs. It's maintaining that standard is the challenge, because I think what's going to happen is these stadiums are going to be throwing more and more events at us all, and we've got to keep up with them and keep the quality. That's the difficult bit.
How many events do you have in the course of, matches, concerts, monster trucks we talked about earlier, speedway, rally cars?
Our year is different from one year to the next. You know, we're a multi-use stadium. Whatever concerts are out there, we bid for. So it depends who's touring. I think next year we have Coldplay, Robbie Williams, Justin Bieber. They're all doing a couple of nights each. We've got. And
when they have a concert, do the crowds get onto the pitch? Is it covered, or are they always in the stands?
Yeah, our typical season, as we spoke about earlier, last year, for example, my last game of rugby would be beginning in May. Last year we had just shy of 40 rugby games, 5 football matches on the pitch in the season.
And you're saying that the players are actually training on the pitch as well?
Yeah, well, being a national stadium, when you have an international fixture, you'll have to have both sides having a captain's run the day before. So if we have an international fixture, Wales v England, both sides get an hour and a half on the Friday. So that's par for the course. When Wales are in camp, they like to come in here once a week for an extra session as well, because they like to fine-tune their skills by playing with the roof closed, which makes my life very difficult. But you understand where they're coming from. If it's windy and wet in their training ground, they can come in here, shut the roof, have sterile conditions, and run through their moves without worrying about a slippery ball or wet surface, etc. Beginning in May, we'll strip the vegetation off the pitch. We'll cover the pitch with a TerraPlast pitch covering. Last year, as I said, we had, I think it was 6 or 7 concerts last year, including Speedway, which is a big event. There's 3,000 ton of shale. There's 3,000 ton of shale on the TerraPlast. followed in the beginning of September last year with Monster Jam. We then took the Terraplace off, and then I get my renovation company, Hewitt Sports, have come in and do a pitch renovation then.
Now we're looking, I've always naively thought when the roof was closed, if you really got one away, you might just bounce the ball off the roof. You're telling me that's not possible. That it's not even possible to hit one of these massive screens you see up there.
We have a bit of fun with some of the away players that come in who have a little try at hitting the big screens, and they can never do it. During the Rugby World Cup last year, New Zealand were in, I think it was the quarter-final match, and they got a set hour, and Dan Carter and a couple of other kickers were here, 15 minutes to go, and we said to them, a bit of a fun, you bet you won't hit that screen. And they spent the last 15 minutes of their set rehearsals.
How close did they get?
Oh, they weren't far, but they couldn't hit
enough
it.
Just to keep the carrot dangling.
They stood under that big screen for 15 minutes just trying to hit it with a rugby ball.
Now, who's the only person who's done it?
The only person I've ever seen do it is Jens Lehmann. I think it was prior to an FA Cup match with Arsenal.
And that wasn't with a rugby ball?
It was with a football. He did it. We said to him, I bet you can't do it, but he did it. Yeah. The only one.
Yeah. Now, what has been, you've been lucky enough to be working here for those many number of years, what has been your favourite sporting moment and favourite non-sporting moment that you've enjoyed here?
Sporting first, I've been fortunate to see 4 Grand Slams won here in my time, from Ruddock when my first time he won the Grand Slam here. Warren Gatland, Ireland have won a Grand Slam here. But my best sporting game that I remember was the 2007 World Cup quarter-final, France v New Zealand.
The comeback game.
Yes, New Zealand were odds on to beat them,
and
France pipped them, and the atmosphere in here was unlike any I've ever experienced.
And amazingly, that's not with the Welsh team.
No, but it was just, it had everything. Like the roof was shut, the atmosphere was phenomenal. It was packed with French fans in here. It was a great game of rugby, and the atmosphere was second to none.
I think I was there for the All Black game when they beat Scotland in the quarter-final.
Right.
So it could have been us.
Yeah,
it could have been us.
And best concert or best non-sporting was, we were lucky enough to get tickets for a U2 concert a few years ago. Brilliant. The best concerts we've ever seen. It was such a big stage. The stage stuck out the top of the roof. We couldn't shut the roof for it.
Lee, thank you very much for your time.
Good to see you.
Very much, and thank you for joining us here in Turf Matters and giving us your time to talk about the wonderful job you do here at the Principality Stadium.
No problem. Good to see you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.